Get ready, because this is going to be a rant, because I've had it. I've had it up to here with this trope in media now. I have had it up to here, and I'm starting to understand where everybody else is, where they just can't stand seeing this anymore. And what was the trigger for this response? Well, it was the movie that I watched the other day. It was called Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim, and it was an awful film. A film that so many times throughout it, I was just like, please be done. I was begging for it to be done. I was like, please be done. And I was just checking the time, just hoping for it to be done. I just wanted to be released from this film. It was so boring and cringe. And what made it so boring? What was so bad about it? Well, what is the plot of War of the Rohirrim? It is about a young girl, and she loves riding horses, and she's friends with animals, and she is loved by everyone in her kingdom, and lusted after by the evil villain, who she has no interest in, because she never is interested in any man or getting married, as she makes very clear. And she's a fantastic leader, and she's fantastic at swordsmanship, and she's a fantastic fighter, and she's a fantastic everything, literally everything. And she just happens to be at every situation in the film, at every point, with the answers, with the right information, receiving the right information and giving the right information. And literally, the only things that go wrong in the plot are apparently because they didn't listen to her. Like that is the plot of the film. At the big point in the film, and this is a Lord of the Rings movie. There is literally a point in the film where the king stops and he's about to die, and he's like, it's my fault. I just didn't see that you were clever enough. I just didn't see that you were strong enough. You should rule the world. There is literally a plot where this character, who is hailed as the strongest, most correct, most clever character in the world, where apparently the king's only flaw was not seeing how clever she was. Only problem is, this character, and I use this term very, very loosely, doesn't actually have a character beyond just being correct and good at everything. She's not really a person. She's not really a character. She is a self-insert, a complete self-insert. And it would not be the first time that Philippa Boyens produced production, I've noticed, has had like a self-insert girl boss redheaded character who is going against the norms and is ultimately correct about everything. I just noticed that, and I'm sitting here in this boring slog of this movie, and it's so boring because you know exactly how it's going to go as they introduce this character that is just correct in everything and doesn't really have a character. You know it's going to go that it'll be the falling action of the movie, everything will be lost, but then she will rise above and prove that she is the best of them all, and that is how it went. And so it's so boring because you know how it's going to go, and it's this character who has no personality and just has nothing to her, and no one's gonna see this movie. But throughout this entire film, I just had so many thoughts going into this head about how tired I am of all this, because I used to be a person who loved seeing, girl power in films and, the actual strong independent characters. But then we got just so many negative tropes, and we've seen it take so many different words and so many different forms. Some people used to call it strong independent woman because that was the term that they used to call these characters, and then that got used negatively. That became negatively appropriated with them. Then it became Mary Sue, which this character is a Mary Sue. She has no flaws whatsoever. And then it became Girlboss, and that's the current term to refer to this type of character, which I would say is not really a tough character. It's not really a heroic female character. It's just a self-insert plank of wood, and we've seen it so much. And as a person who used to like actual heroic female characters, what used to actually be considered the strong female characters, I just had so many thoughts watching this film. For example, when the character said, "I don't want to ever get married," I was just like, you know what I would like to see for once? I would like to see a female character where her only motivation is, I would like to get married someday. I would like to find true love. How can I be saying this? Am I mad? She's an anti-feminist. She has internalized misogyny. I've gotten all of those claims against me. I am interested in the most interesting story, and I hate to say this, but the girl boss narrative is not interesting to me anymore, at least the way it's done here. Why do I want to see a female character who is just interested in love? because we haven't seen that in forever. We never see any of that. It's always a independent woman who doesn't want love in any way, shape, or form, completely uninterested in men. She always wants something else. And we have seen it with every character, every female character. It is just making me sick of it, so sick of it. And these characters are just planks of wood. They're not actually relatable. That's what I was thinking. That is the conditioning that they have put on me at this point. Because we were just seeing it a couple weeks ago with the Snow White movie and the new trailer.
It's time to restore our kingdom.
And we've got the exact same thing. A character fighting against the norms of society who is great at everything and is a warrior and stages an uprising. And it's the same thing over and over and over again and just pounding at it. Years ago, like it was 10 years ago's time that I heard someone say that the strong independent woman, or as we now call it, the girl boss trope, was becoming as dated and as overused as the damsel in distress once was. That was almost 10 years ago that I heard someone say that. And now it's just the same thing. We're just getting more of it. Even 10 years later, they just keep shoving it down. And the more I think about the Snow White movie and the more I think about what the problem is the problem that it seems uninspired? Well, that's part of it. Is the problem that it's cliched? Well, that's part of it. The problem with the girl boss narrative in Snow White is there was literally no other story that they could have possibly told with it. Why? Because this is like mandatory on everything. It always has to be this girl boss trope who needs no man and is a warrior and is staging an uprising. Those three things over and over and over again, and I'm just so sick of it. It's the same thing over and over again. You've literally conditioned me to want the other thing. I was watching that War of the Rohirrim movie, and I'm like, this story didn't even happen in the Lord of the Rings books. This is like literally someone's Wattpad fan fiction is what it came across as when you're 12 years old and you're inserting this perfect version of yourself that everyone loves in your favorite franchise. That was what War of the Rohirrim was. But I'm like, but Tolkien did create actually strong female characters. You know what great story Tolkien wrote? The story of Beren and Luthien. And Luthien does a lot in that story, and she is a strong character. But guess what? The story of Beren and Luthien, as written by Tolkien, who they're constantly trying to disparage for supposedly not having strong female characters when he did, that is a love story. And guess what? I heard it when I was younger, and I loved it. But, and I thought, while I was watching the movie, you know, if you wanted to do a movie, because this movie was just made to retain the rights to Lord of the Rings, I'm like, you could have told the story of Beren and Luthien. What a great story to tell in the anime format. And guess what? If you're trying to bring in more women to watch Lord of the Rings, which I don't think you need to, I thought there were plenty of female fans of Lord of the Rings, but Philip Boyens apparently thinks that there needs to be more, you could have told the story of Beren and Luthien. Would have been a great story. So many girls love seeing love stories, even though you keep denying it. We like love stories. I'm sorry that's just the way it is. But they couldn't tell that because they can't have the love story because that goes against the girl boss narrative or whatever it is. As one of the tropes of the girl boss narrative is she can't find love. Unless, and I've noticed this, and am I crazy? Tell me if I'm crazy. I've noticed that the only time they allow a girl boss to have a love interest is if it's one of those tween Wattpad romances. Like, I've seen this 3 times. It happened with Tauriel in The Hobbit. It happened with Rey and Kylo. It happened with the Acolyte, with Osha, and whoever that guy was. I can't even remember his name. But it seems like it's only acceptable to do a love interest in these cases if it's that forbidden bad boy Wattpad thing, you know? The girl who's great at everything suddenly reaches the guy that she's not supposed to have. That kind of thing. That's so weird. But you have to think, why is it whenever we get these female characters who are supposedly strong, these are supposedly our heroes that we're supposed to look up to, it's always like this 12-year-old fan fiction kind of stuff. Like, what is that? And the characters are always planks of wood. And I'm so tired of it. It's so uninspired. It's so sickening. I'm at the point where if I see like a woman who wants love or something, which you never see that in Western media anymore, I'm a little bit more receptive to it because I'm like, oh, something different. And before it used to be that female characters would only ever want love, and that's why it became a problem then. It's the same problem at both times, though. It's that you're only ever allowing the female characters in mainstream America American media to be portrayed one thing over and over and over again. And it's always the ideal in which society thinks a woman's supposed to be. It's never inspiration from the writer. It's never somebody really wanted to tell this story. It's never actually showing the different facets of life and the different goals a person can have and the different kinds of personalities. It's always just the archetype of what society thinks a woman should be. That doesn't sound like actual feminism to me. Either way, it's the same problem each time. I can't believe Philippa Boyens or anyone associated with this film, War of the Rohirrim, thought that this was going to entertain anybody or empower anyone. It is just such a boring slog, and it's all we see for years. Do you know why Harley Quinn, the Batman the Animated Series version, was my favorite character at the time? And once again, introduced to the character nearly 10 years ago now. I loved her so much and was so interested in her in the beginning because she was something different. She was a character who could be in love with a psycho who's an abusive person, and she wouldn't get out of it. She wouldn't get out of it. She liked murdering people. She liked stealing. She was literally everything that society wouldn't want a woman to be, and that was the entire point. She was a villain. She was a crazy person, and that's why it was interesting to me, because we never get to see that. We always have to have these female characters molded into the perfect idea of what society should think. But the embarrassing thing about all of these stories coming from Hollywood is that they started happening in part because of all the louder minority saying that they wanted more characters like this. But what it really kicked off was after the Me Too movement. And I think what happened, because I heard some of this behind the scenes, is a lot of executives wanted to create these movies as a way to apologize for hoarding a big fat pig that they were making money and awards off of for years. We're sorry. We really want to empower women with these stories. And then these executives, and by the way, these are mostly male executives. It's mostly male executives in Hollywood. Even a lot of the women that they hire to produce these films, they're hired by men because Hollywood has always been very male dominated. These male executives who covered for Harvey Weinstein for years and want to empower women, greenlight these stories to cover their butts, I guess, and then they prove that they can't write women. They prove that they can't write women. They don't know how to treat them as actual characters. They don't know how to actually treat them with respect, because portraying women as these planks of wood or toxic, like, or where you can't explore any other facets, like, that's not being respectful. This has brought on hate to these characters. This has made it so even, like these days, even when a character doesn't follow the girl boss narrative, I see any character who's trying to be more of a toughened female character getting hate now because of that. I think if you had a character like Éowyn from The Two Towers and Return of the King, if she was portrayed just as she was then, and that was a good way, I think she would get hate now, because audiences are so tired of this trope over and over again. And these executives have made it so because they don't know how to write and present female characters. They don't know how to actually treat them with respect. So it's like, so you ruined this trope. So in your process to seem like you're not misogynistic, you kind of revealed that you're the misogynists here, because this is what you think female characters should be. This is what you think needs to be the representation, and you haven't been listening to people for years over this. If you want to actually show respect for women and female characters, you give female characters good writing. That could be if a female character is supposed to be a hero, where you can definitely do the hero's journey. That can be if a female character is supposed to be weak and vulnerable or conniving or evil. Either way, give good writing. That is all that matters. Not this ridiculous plank of wood, cardboard cutout, a girl boss narrative stereotype where apparently it's more empowering if she doesn't have a personality and doesn't want to have a male love interest. Oh my goodness. The worst part of all of this is I'm not sure if we're going to ever get good writing for these female characters, because it's always one thing or the other. Hollywood is probably going to interpret all of this sickness from girl boss characters as, oh, they just don't want to see tough female characters. Well, let's just portray weak female characters that are one-dimensional and have no actual character and don't actually have good writing. Because Hollywood, you are the problem. You are the ones with the writers who don't know how to do female characters properly and don't have any respect for the writing behind them. And you're the one who has made everyone sick of this girl boss narrative. And if you don't get yourselves together and realize that the answer is actual good writing, not one trope or the other, then you're never going to dig yourselves out of this hole. But yeah, I'm sick of the girl boss narrative. I am so sick of this. Why don't you give me a romance for once? And not any of this ridiculous tween Twilight romance stuff. Maybe an actual mature romance. Can you do that? Can you actually write that well? Because everyone is tired of this. No one wants to see this trope anymore. Just stop it. It's embarrassing. It's actually degrading. Cut it out. What do you guys think? Do you think I just have internalized misogyny, as some people have told me before? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you, patrons. As always, if you want to support my work on Patreon, please check out the link in the description. I have a brand new short film coming out very soon, and I could use all of your support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.